Hey, my friend, good morning. I'm gonna stand over there and read books. You can still hear me. I just want to be close to my dog. Yeah, she's eating grass right at the moment. I assume she doesn't feel well with her stomach, so she needs to eat some grass to help her to throw up. All right, today is December 16th, 2025. Dollar. Dollar. 过来 Dollar. Dollar. What the heck? Let me start from here. Oh, no, I don't want that. Oh, okay. I was reading about a USFL. All right. My aggressiveness in signing NFL players also seemed to inspire other USFL owners. The second USFL draft was held on January 1984. The Pittsburgh franchise drafted Heisman Trophy winner Mike Rozier from Nebraska and signed him 5 days later. The team's season ticket sales immediately jumped from 6,000 to 20,000. Brigham, young quarterback from 6,000. Wait, hold up. Let me just sit down here. Sit down. Okay. Brigham young quarterback Steve Young, a college superstar, signed a multi-million-dollar contract with the USFL's Los Angeles Express. Don Klosterman, the president of the LA Express, also managed to sign 14 other draft picks, every one of whom was a good NFL prospect. Altogether, USFL teams signed nearly half of the top college players we went after. So, Sports Illustrated posed the obvious question in an article about the success of our draft: how many more players like Rozier and Young can the NFL afford to lose? When our owners met in New Orleans on January 17th, I pushed again to move our season to the fall. Given our success in luring NFL players and signing top college prospects, the time couldn't have been better. I suggested a fall vote right then and there, but the reluctant owners managed to vote through a compromise, instead appointing a long-range planning committee to study the spring-fall question. To me, committees are what insecure people create in order to put off making hard decisions. But at least I'd gotten the fall question on the table as a serious issue. I was made a member of the new committee, and I was confident and I'd ultimately persuade a majority of owners that the fall was our best hope. Meanwhile, the NFL was beginning to run scared. Run scared? Yeah. The best evidence was a meeting the league held in Cambridge, Massachusetts in February 1984 to discuss its future, and specifically the threat of the USFL. The main seminar, which we didn't learn about until much later, was conducted by a highly respected Harvard Business School professor named Michael Porter, who had prepared a 47-page document entitled "The USFL versus the NFL." Some 65 NFL executives attended his presentation. Among them, Jack Donlan, executive director of the NFL Management Council, as well as numerous team owners. Porter bluntly outlined a multi-part plan for declaring total war on our league. By employing numerous anti-competitive strategies, his 2.5-hour presentation was divided into sections such as offensive strategies, guerrilla warfare, and the art of war, China 500 BC. Porter's suggestions included trying to dissuade ABC from continuing even its spring television contract with the USFL, encouraging USFL players to unionize in order to drive up our costs, and attempting to co-opt the most powerful and influential USFL owners by offering them NFL franchises. As we launched our second season in the spring of 1984, we weren't yet aware of the NFL's secret campaign to destroy us, but we were probably feeling its effects. Several of our more vulnerable owners, most particularly those in Chicago, Washington, San Antonio, and Oklahoma, had begun to experience severe financial problems. The danger to the league was less losing a couple of franchises than having our credibility damaged. As long as we had problems, it was difficult to get the press to focus on our stronger teams. Instead, sports writers wrote about declining attendance in the weaker cities and the personal financial problems some owners were having. Meanwhile, as I feared, the long-range planning study dragged on. A majority of owners had voted to hire an outside consultant, McKinsey & Company, to conduct the study. McKinsey is probably the best in its business, but I like consultants even less than I like committees. When it comes to making a smart decision, the most distinguished planning committee working with the highest priced consultants doesn't hold a candle to a group of guys with a reasonable amount of common sense and their own money on the line. McKinsey's study took 3 months and cost a princely $600,000. Finally, on the morning of August 22, 1984, McKinsey executive Sharon Patrick presented her conclusions to the USFL owners who had gathered in Chicago. The league's best hope, she told us, was to continue to play in the spring, to limit expenditures severely, and perhaps to consider a move to the fall somewhere down the line. Among other things, she reported that a majority of fans who'd been surveyed in a poll wanted the USFL to stay in the spring. You can probably guess how much stock I put in polls. The reality was that we just couldn't afford to adopt the McKinsey conclusions. Even if we cut our losses in the spring, there was no foreseeable chance of making a profit, and a lot of our weaker owners couldn't afford to lose another dime. We needed to take radical action, and that's what I stood up and stayed. Within 2 hours of Patrick's presentation, I managed to get the issue of moving to the fall put to a vote. It passed by more than the required 2/3 majority. That same afternoon, we announced the decision to take effect following one last spring season. The other thing we began to discuss at the meeting was bringing an antitrust suit against the NFL. Specifically, we authorized our commissioner, Chet Simmons, to send NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle a letter putting the NFL on notice. Simmons stated our views gently. The position of the USFL as a new sports enterprise and the market position of the NFL make it essential to the survival of the USFL that the NFL and the NFL owners operate within the bounds of the laws and the regulations which govern the conduct of a business having a dominant market position. Put more bluntly, our message was this: If you try to hurt us, we'll sue you. By October, it was clear that something had changed dramatically in the tenor of our discussions with the CBS and NBC. So long as we were just considering a move to the fall, both networks seemed interested in discussing a deal. No sooner did we announce our move, however, and they both backed off totally. It was obvious to me that the NFL was putting enormous pressure on the networks not to do business with us in the fall, particularly on ABC, with whom we already had a contract for the spring. Pete Rozelle later testified that he'd never been discussed the issue with Ron Arledge, the head of ABC Sports. To me, that was preposterous. Rozelle and Arledge are longtime colleagues and good friends. Would anyone seriously believe that Rozelle, highly concerned about the implications of the USFL's move to the fall, wouldn't make his views known to his friend Arledge? And is it really possible that Arledge, a man who made millions of dollars for ABC by inventing NFL Monday Night Football, wouldn't be highly concerned with keeping Rozelle happy? The irony is that all three networks, not just ABC but NBC and CBS as well, were actually losing money on NFL games. After total rights fees in excess of $350 million a year, the networks, by their own estimates, lost many millions televising games during 1985. Even so, no network wanted to risk alienating the NFL. Football is the prestige TV sport, and in order to remain competitive with one another, the three networks were resigned to carrying the NFL as a loss leader. As for the USFL, we were left with no option. On October 17, 1984, we filed an antitrust suit in the Southern District Court of New York. Specifically, we asked that the NFL be limited to contracts with no more than two of the networks and that we be awarded damage of $1.32 billion. In the meantime, we had a more immediate problem: staying alive. On January 3rd, 1985, the USFL held its third draft of college seniors, while the Generals had improved greatly to 9-5 and averaged more than 40,000 fans again. Other teams were falling more deeply into the red. We very much needed a shot in the arm. My own solution was to go after the best and most exciting college senior. There was little doubt who that was. Doug Flutie of Boston College was a lock to win the Heisman Trophy. In his final game, playing against the University of Miami on national television, Flutie capped his career by throwing a last-second 50-yard bomb for a touchdown, giving Boston College a 47-45 victory. Very quickly, the pass became one of those instant replay classics, transforming Flutie into an overnight sports legend. I must have seen the pass at least 24 times on various newscasts and sports shows. I also liked the fact that Flutie had great media potential. He was good-looking, well-spoken, and gutsy. Well-spoken, okay. All right, I'm gonna stop reading and go upstairs and take a nice shower. I'm gonna record a really important video later. See you.